And remember, dearest, the time you came in shrieking that there was a rhino behind the rubber plant? Yes, but... And all the zookeeper found was a snail and a dead cigar. But Fred, there was a hippo in the hollyhocks. When you came out to investigate, he ran behind the gazebo. See his tracks? Tracks, schmacks, you should be hospitalized. I'm calling the doctor at once. Where is the telephone book? The telephone book is in the garden, Fred, but don't go there. There is a hippo. Now, please notice Fred's shirt, which has yellow polka dots. That's important to the plot, because this is a wordless book. Now, I've jumped over another section which involved an ostrich, but you'll see the ostrich here. Poor Fred, he never listened to a word I said. This was written solely for my 7-year-old son's enjoyment, and also perhaps for my own therapeutic needs. It's not surprising that when at 19 I married a guy who was 21, the marriage did not survive. Okay, this is me wearing a shirt, and what I have to describe is here now. It's, this dates back to when I'm 8, 9 years old, but the story I'm about to tell you takes place in probably 1975. Early morning, we live in Maine. There was a book called One Morning in Maine. I didn't write it, though. Robert McCloskey did. My kids had all gone off to school in the morning. Their dad had gone off to work, and I was alone in the house, and the dog was in the backyard. And I went out with the leftover scrambled eggs to drop them into the dog's dish. And there was something about the smell of the air that brought back the memory of the day that I wore this shirt. It was the smell of this time of year when the leaves are brown and on the ground, and the kids' Halloween pumpkins were rotting on the porch, and wood smoke out of neighbors' wood stoves. All of those things combined. Apples still hanging in the trees, but they're turning brown now and wrinkled and sour. And so I remembered this day, and I went inside and wrote it down. And it became this story. I sent it to a magazine, and they bought it immediately and published it in their December issue. I can't read the date there. I think it's 1975. And it begins, it was morning, early, barely light, cold for November. I was 9 and the war was over. And it's a story about my father coming home, a stranger to me at the end of World War II, and buying me that shirt that I had seen in a store, and even though it was a men's shirt, and my sister rolled her eyes and said, "Daddy, that's for men." He bought me that wonderful big shirt. And so the story was published, and after it was published, well, this is long after, it was then rewritten, revised at the request of an editor who turned it with these beautiful illustrations into a picture book that came out 2 years ago. Oops, and this, I was instructed I can never go back. Wait a minute. I've forgotten why I wanted to go back. Okay, as people in the earlier panel were describing, usually the author of a picture book does not meet. The publisher prefers that the illustrator and the writer stay completely separate. So I've never met this gentleman who lives in Pennsylvania, so he knew the landscape and did the most beautiful pictures for this book. Okay, but after the story was published, I'm now going back to 1975 again. I was in graduate school at the time. I was studying photography. I was still writing, but I was also raising a family. But after the story was published, I got a letter from Houghton Mifflin, a children's book editor, Houghton Mifflin, asking me if I would consider writing a novel for young adults. She had read the story in a magazine, said I sounded like somebody who could write from the perceptions of a child. Didn't give me any suggestions what to write, what they were looking for, nor did I ask, but I sat down and wrote the story that I'd been telling in my own mind to myself for many years, and that was the story of the death of my own sister when we were both young. And so this was published in 1977. Still in print, different covers on it. These are foreign editions. I sometimes have made kids guess what those languages are, but they always flunk because it's too hard. On the right is Swedish, and the center is Norwegian, but this one on the left is super difficult. It's Afrikaans. But this is the cover that they've put on it most recently. There was a time about 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and you librarians and teachers probably noticed this, that a lot of book covers had headless girls on them. I don't know why that became popular. This book, this republication of this book happened at that time, so we have a headless girl. I do like this cover though. And at the bottom in small print it says with an afterword by the author. So many years had passed, the book had never gone out of print, but now they're republishing it, and so many years had passed that they asked me to write a little update. And I was very glad to be able to do that because the illness from which the sister dies in the book is now curable. And so it's important that kids know that and have that information when they read this book now. Okay, I told you I was studying photography in graduate school. Here I think I'm 35. I'd have to do the math quickly. But my father is now old, and he's given me his old German cameras. And I studied photography and started working as a photographer. Most often I did portraits, but I did a lot of photographic work for magazines for whom I would also do the articles. And so this was a child whose parents hired me to photograph her. They were Swedish. He was the Swedish consul in the United States, and they hired me to photograph this lovely child. She was 10 years old. I did the photographs, delivered them to the family, and kept a few of them for myself, just because she had such a haunting face. I didn't often keep photographs that I'd done after I delivered them to whoever commissioned them, but every now and then I would. And so I had this photograph in my drawer for years, and then when I wrote Number the Stars, the publisher was talking to me about the editor about what to put on the cover, what the girl should look like, and I brought out this photograph, and they decided to use it on the cover. So I tracked down the parents to get their permission, and they laughed. And they said, you have to call her, she's all grown up. And in fact, she has 4 children now, because she's, of course, even much older now. This book has been around since 1989, I believe. Then the book designer, as you heard earlier, takes over, and it was they who put the necklace on the jacket of this book. I just included here some of the pictures from the actual events in Denmark. I've occasionally, in fact, next week I'll be at a synagogue in Sacramento talking about this book specifically. And these are some of the actual photographs. This is the King of Denmark riding on his horse. And if you've read the book, you know that he rides his horse through the streets of Copenhagen every day. And the story is told in the book. This is the rabbi of the synagogue in Copenhagen. He had 5 children. He was saved along with all the rest of the Jews with his family. And this, goodness, that text is very in need of some work. But this is an actual Danish fisherman who was involved in the rescue of the Jews. And the text, which I can't read, I'm not sure what's happened to it, but it comes from a song that is part of a musical that was made in Number the Stars, and it ran in New York 2 years in a row, limited engagement. And there's a scene where the fisherman is the only person on the stage, and he's seated on a pile of coiled rope, and he has a cap just like this on, and he sings in a beautiful voice, at least the performances I saw. This song, which we can't unfortunately read, but it talks about the boat is small. Well, I'm sorry, I just can't, I'll have to fix those words. But anyway, it's a lovely moment on the stage.